Andre. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us on another webinar in our webinar series of Mastering Workplace Focus. And this month, the topic is around overcoming challenging thoughts and emotions. Some of you who maybe follow our work in more details know that in the last 2 weeks, due to the tragic events that happened in Serbia in the beginning of this month, we kind of rearranged things that we were doing. So we were leading the free guided mindfulness and self-compassion exercises twice a day in the last 2 weeks. And we had teachers from the region, also teachers from United States joining us. And we held this meditation as a form of support through everything that has happened here in Serbia and in the region. Some of the meditations were in English, Serbian, Macedonian, Slovene language, Croatian, Montenegrin, and so on. So I invite you to watch if you haven't had a chance. If you understand these languages, you can maybe listen to these meditations, or you can also listen to some which are in English language. And that's why this month we haven't had a podcast, but we did publish an interesting article related to the topic of challenging emotions and thoughts. And we're ending this month with our monthly free webinar. So for the ones who don't know me, my name is Vesna Lakovic van Kempen. By formal education, I'm a pedagogist. I have a master's degree in educational sciences. I'm a mindful self-compassion theory provider, certified trainer in mindfulness practices, and I've been doing this for almost a decade now. So I work with diverse groups of people in diverse settings, from companies, nonprofit organizations, schools, mindful community recoveries from addiction centers in Thailand as well. So I really practiced and use these approaches with variety of age groups and people. So today we will be, I kind of went a little bit further away with my presentation. So some of you who applied for this webinar and who are here with us on this meeting platform, you can see these presentations. Other ones who are watching us on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook can see this presentation. But anyways, I will try to talk clearly and slowly so that you can still follow through even though you don't see the presentation. If you like to get a recording with the presentation, we will leave the info at the bottom of the videos and you can sign up and also later on in the next weeks watch this video again and see the presentation. So this is myself and my husband. We're working together. We call ourselves Bujo Education. It's exactly how you read it in Serbian language, Bujo Education. I know Serbian people get confused because they think that they need to put some foreign letters and way of pronouncing it, but actually this is Bujo Education, how we would read it in Serbian language. And we're mostly working with groups, and that is something that we prefer, working with groups rather than one-on-one. And we're empowering teams, breaking down stereotypes about mental health by initiating open and honest conversation and fostering understanding, acceptance, and promoting growth and recovery. So you might recognize this from different places, from different maybe conferences. Also, I write a lot. I also written a book about mindfulness as well. So maybe you read some of my articles on some blogs, whether on our website or some other. And every month we're diving deeper in different topics. This month is, as I mentioned, is the topic of emotions and thoughts. In the last 3 months, we went through the topic of mindfulness, attention, concentration, stress control. Next month of June, will be devoted to self compassion. And then we decided to switch the topic of resilience for September. But in the last week of June, we will have a certain special event that will be devoted to building resilience, leadership as well. So we will share more information about this soon on our newsletter. And it will be a paid event with different workshops, different exercises that I invite you all to join and write to me if you want to find out more. So every month we're sharing article on the certain topic. We're sharing podcast, certain exercise, and then we end the month with the webinar. And that is exactly what we're doing right now. And all of this you can find on our website, buyoeducation.com, also on our Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn pages, and also on our YouTube channel. And in this way, we provide all these materials for free because we want to build awareness around the topics that kind of belong to a wider team of mindfulness. So as you can see, these were some of the topics we covered in the past, and I invite you really to check out the webinars that we had in the past, read the articles, listen to the podcasts. And this month is the topic of emotional intelligence, actually emotions and thoughts. So before we start with the webinar, I would like to maybe lead a short exercise, which we call soft landing, a short guided practice that can help us become a bit more aware of how we are right now. So I invite you to sit comfortably, put just both feet on the ground. You can close your eyes if you like, or you can just look down. And just take a few deep inhales and exhales. And just notice the posture of your body, how you're sitting. If you need to adjust it so that you sit more comfortably, feel free to do that. And just pay attention for a little bit and focus your attention to your body. Just notice what is present in your body right now. Is your body tense, relaxed, tired? Whatever there is, just be curious about it. Don't judge yourself for feeling something or not feeling, for noticing something or not. Just focus your attention on your body for a little bit. And then notice, how are you feeling right now? Are there any emotions present? Thoughts? Or maybe in a certain mood right now? And be curious to see what is there. What is present within you right now? And allow yourself to feel whatever you're feeling and to be exactly as you are right now. And once again, take a deep inhale and a deep exhale. And when you feel ready, you can slowly open your eyes. So, this is something that we mostly do when we're just starting with certain mindfulness trainings, exercises, workshops. And this is something that I also would recommend, suggest for you to maybe incorporate in your daily life. Maybe before you start to work, or maybe before certain important meeting, or even conversation. It doesn't have to be work related. If you're a teacher, maybe within your classes. If you're working with your team around certain topic, maybe before you start or when you finish with certain tasks you've been doing. So there are really many different ways how you can do soft landing, and it can always be led by another person, and it's just a small check-in. What's going on within you right now, within your body? Which are the thoughts you're having, feelings? How is your breath? Are there any sounds that you can hear around you? Also, focusing on the sounds is very calming and relaxing for many people. And there is no right or wrong way how you should feel after doing this. So it's just becoming aware of what is present now. So there are no correct or incorrect answers when we're doing mindfulness in general, but also these kind of exercises. Okay, so now we will dive deeper a little bit in this month's topic. So this month we will be talking about emotions and thoughts. So I will just briefly explain what is emotional intelligence and what can you do to develop your emotional intelligence. What won't work, and people unfortunately tend to do this. When I say people, I include myself as well, because I also tend to do those things, which sometimes aren't helpful. And I also want you to know that everything that I will be talking about today and in general when I teach, I always talk from the perspective of mindfulness and mindful self compassion approaches and approaches in which I'm trained in. I am aware that there are many different approaches to emotional intelligence, many different theories, many different practices, many different psychotherapy approaches as well, and that they all more or less talk in the same way, have a certain same goal or framework or whatever. So I will be talking from the perspective of the things I'm certified in. But of course, if you have something else that works for you and some other practice or approach that you are using within your life, within your work that works for you, that's great. For me, I'm talking from my perspective and my knowledge and what I have been teaching people for now almost a decade. Okay, so let's maybe first clarify what is emotional intelligence. So sometimes emotional intelligence, referred to as EQ, uh, is the ability to identify, understand, and manage one's emotions along with emotions of others. Emotional intelligence includes the ability to self reflect, self soothe, and empathize for oneself and others. Today, when we will be talking about emotional intelligence, we will be talking mostly from the perspective of developing self awareness and self regulation. There are also other things that are impacting our emotional intelligence, such as learning how to manage stress, also developing your empathy, and so on. So today, our focus will be on self awareness and self regulation. Because when we talk about self awareness and self regulation, when we talk about these terms, mindfulness can really help us benefit the most when we talk about developing self awareness and self regulation. So what can you do to develop your emotional intelligence? So we can work on, first of all, our self-awareness, and also we can work on self-regulation skills. So self-awareness means that we are aware of our emotions and thoughts, our reactions, and in a way, why we are doing certain things in a specific way. And I find working on development of self-awareness very, very important, even more important than working on, for example, self-confidence, which is, for example, in today's world, really popular. Like, oh, how to build my self-confidence, how to have, higher self-esteem, and so on. I'm not saying it's not important, but I'm saying that I think that the first step would be building self-awareness, because when we are self-aware, then we also tend to know ourselves better, and then we're also able to better manage our emotions, our thoughts, our reactions, communication with other people, and so on. And therefore that would easily lead then to development of self-confidence and building our self-esteem, because we might also have people who are maybe self-confident but aren't so self-aware, because self-confidence is more related to me being successful in, let's say, certain thing that I'm doing or certain skill that I have developed, and then I'm confident about it. But maybe I'm not so self-aware about, for example, how certain words that I'm saying are certain words that maybe other people are saying to me are impacting my emotions, my thoughts, my reactions, and so on. So as you can see, these are all different terms. So today we will be focusing on self-awareness and self-regulation. And when we talk about self-regulation, when you kind of build up on your self-awareness, then that also leads to building up certain self-regulation, meaning that you're learning how to manage better your emotions and thoughts. When I say manage better your emotions and thoughts, I mostly mean difficult emotions, unpleasant thoughts, and so on. So building self-awareness in time also leads to better self-regulation as well. So here I wanted to share today a little bit more rather than sharing exercises, because I have a feeling that in the last webinars we shared quite some exercises with you. In this webinar, I would like to share a bit more self-reflection questions for you to think about how you're responding to your difficult emotions. And I believe that these questions can help you become a bit more self-aware, and then maybe also learning different ways of how you can actually calm yourself down. So first thing that I would advise you when we talk about, let's say, challenging emotions and thoughts, first thing I would ask you to pay more attention to your emotions. So first thing that you can ask yourself is, can you even recognize difficult emotions, and not just difficult, but also pleasant emotions that you're experiencing? Can you recognize when you're experiencing sadness, when you're experiencing anger, fear, or joy? Which thoughts may follow these emotions? I know for some people, this might sound a bit abstract. In a way, you might start to think like, okay, well, it depends on the situation, and in every situation, I have different thought that is kind of following my emotions and so on. But sometimes there are maybe certain thoughts that are constantly appearing in your mind when you're faced with certain, let's say, stressful or unpleasant situations. So for example, maybe you constantly have a thought in your head, like you're faced with a certain challenge, and then you have a thought in your head, oh my god, I'm so stupid. And what might happen is that this, maybe, let's say, thought, I'm so stupid, is often for you a sign that after that thought you might go in your, let's say, feeling of sadness or fear, that you might say something embarrassing, that you might embarrass yourself, or it leads you to a certain feeling of shame or guilt, and so on. So sometimes by recognizing certain thought patterns that you might have in challenging situations might help you to prevent going into a certain difficult emotions, which maybe in that situation is not necessary, it's not needed. So by recognizing certain thought patterns that you might have in certain challenging situations, then you might kind of follow the track how these negative thoughts might lead you to certain difficult emotions. So for example, I'm in a stressful situation, I have a thought, oh my God, I'm so stupid. I know this is a sentence that I often say to myself. I know from the past that often when I have this thought, that leads me to feelings of shame or sadness. And that right after having those thoughts, I might start feeling ashamed or sad or whatever. So, by finding maybe that connections with certain recurring thoughts, and you might find a connection to which emotions those thoughts might lead you, so that you can find ways to calm yourself down and calm those negative thoughts down in a way so that you don't escalate into a certain overwhelming emotion. Also, the other thing that might be helpful, a certain question that you might ask yourself is, where are these emotions in your body? So often we can recognize a certain bodily sensation, and then we might know, okay, this is now going to lead me to feel angry or to feel sad and so on. So for example, you're in a certain challenging situation and you're noticing that you start to make fists in your hands and that you start to have like a slight headache. And for you, that might be a sign, oh, I know where this follows. When I start to feel a slight headache and when I start making fists for my hands, that might lead me to getting angry. So, what can I do to calm myself down to prevent myself from getting angry? So, by following your thoughts and body sensations, that can be really helpful signs and clues for you to know in which, let's say, emotion you might dwell into consciously or unconsciously. And the other question that you can ask yourself is, what do I do when I'm experiencing these emotions? What do you tend to do? Some people tend to eat when they're, for example, sad or angry. Some people tend to yell. Some people tend to do something to distract themselves. Some people tend to ventilate on other people their frustrations or emotions and so on. So take some time, even journal about this. Even journaling about this can be quite useful to observe your behavior and your reactions when you're in certain challenging situations. And that can give you a lot of clues and signs about how you're experiencing difficult emotions. And this is all part of building self awareness. Many people are experiencing emotions totally unconsciously. They get or totally carried away by the emotions, or they suppress them, or they're not even aware what they're feeling. Like, of course, sometimes it can be mixed of a lot of feelings, but in most cases there is one feeling that is a bit more dominant than the other one. So by taking some time to observe your reactions in challenging situations can give you a lot of clues about how you're experiencing emotions, when, how do you respond to them, what's happening with your mind, in which thought patterns are you going, what's happening with your body, and so on. This is already a first important step when it comes to building self-awareness, but also learning how to self-regulate yourself in a way. Many people find this pretty simple. They like concrete tools and techniques and methods. In my experience, even this first step, like observing yourself, it's really difficult for people to learn and to manage and to know how to pause, slow down, and observe themselves in challenging situations. So even if you learn just this from this whole webinar, it's already a great success. Okay, then you can ask yourself also the following questions. Do you stay with your emotions or you do something to distract yourself? So what are your responses to difficult emotions, challenging emotions? Do you stay with them? Meaning, do you take some time to be with emotion, like to sit with it, to feel it, to notice where it is in the body, what caused these emotions, or just like paying attention to your body, what's happening, and so on? Or you tend to distract yourself, or you tend to do certain things which are maybe unhealthy, which are maybe not good for yourself when don't want to deal with them. Do you ignore your emotions? Do you pretend that they're not like not there. So, for example, maybe you had a conflict with someone and you're experiencing a lot of anger, and maybe the person tells you, well, I think you're being really angry right now. And you're like, oh, no, 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 I'm not angry. I'm totally fine. It's all fine. It's all okay. I'm not angry. Or, meaning, does that mean that you also ignore the person who maybe has provoked this emotion within you? So, how do you respond to emotions that maybe come up in relationships with other people? Do you tend to acknowledge them to yourself and to others, or you tend to withhold them, pretend that they're not there, and then maybe later on, when you're back home, let's say with your family, with friends, you burst into, I don't know, frustration or anger or sadness or something else? Or maybe you're not ignoring them, maybe you're not distracting them, but maybe emotions take total control of you. So when you're crying, it's like eruption of tears. When you're angry, you're like screaming, yelling, you can't control yourself. So how do you respond to your difficult emotions? Like, what do you do with emotions that you're experiencing? All these questions can help you think a bit deeper about your reactions and whether those reactions are actually helping you, whether they're a healthy way of responding, or they're not helping you in life in general. So now I would like to share from perspective of mindfulness, but also from perspective of mindful self-compassion, certain steps that you can do when you are experiencing difficult emotions and when you're faced with challenging emotions. So first thing, asking yourself those questions, pausing and so on. The first thing definitely would be to pause. When a certain emotion appears, so whether you're going to notice it in the form of a thought or in form of a body sensation, pause. I know people usually tell me, and I'm also a human being, so I also have emotions, so I know how it goes. People usually tell me, oh, but when I'm in conflict with someone, I can't just like pause there and, contemplate about the emotions, so on. So this can be literally seconds, and this can be something that you're experiencing internally. So it's not like you are getting annoyed by someone and you're going to tell to a person, oh, please wait, I need to experience my emotions right now. So, of course, that's impossible. Maybe, maybe with some people you're really close with, but I assume in general day-to-day communications you can do those things. But if you really practice mindfulness, if you really practice certain type of mindfulness meditations, and if you really take some time to build up on this skill, you can do this as an internal process, and you can do it more as a quick check-in to calm yourself down. But this comes with practice. This is not something that comes overnight. So the first thing would be to pause when the emotion appear. That's the first step. The second thing you can do is having sincere, childlike, and authentic curiosity to determine where in the body that emotion is. Be curious. What do I notice right now in my body? And really be interested to find out what is happening within you right now. And you can even name those things for yourself. Okay, I notice I start to breathe faster. I notice I have uh, like something in my throat that I feel like I can't speak. Or I notice that there's some tension in my stomach, that I'm making fists in my palms, that I have a headache. So what is going on within your body? And stay with that. Become aware of that. Be present with those body sensations. Be curious to stay with them for a little bit longer and determine where it is in your body. The third step would be, when you determine where it is in your body, is to name it. Name the emotion that you feel. Name it for yourself. I'm angry. I'm sad. I'm ashamed. I'm afraid. I'm frustrated. What is the emotion that is present within you right now? If there are more emotions, if you're at the same time afraid and angry and sad and it's a mix of everything, try naming the one that you feel the strongest. There is always the one that is a bit more dominant than the other ones. Name it for yourself. Name where it is in the body, then name it which exact emotion you're feeling. And then the fourth step, which is for people the most difficult, stay with it. Pay attention to the emotion and to the body sensation that follows this emotion and stay with it. So don't go into analysis. Why is it there? Why do I feel like this? I want that it goes away. It's not the right way how I should feel. I should feel something different. It's too much. I can't handle this. Just stay with it. In a way, the fourth step is literally comforting yourself for feeling the way you feel, giving it space to be there. What I often do is I put a hand on the place where I feel that emotion to calm myself down. So whether that's, I don't know, hand on my chest if I feel pain in my heart, whether it's a hand on my stomach, whether it's hand on my throat or on my shoulder. So finding a certain soothing and supportive touch that can help you calm down. Touch can be very calming and very relaxing for our nervous system. And the same way when you're experiencing certain difficult emotions, in some situations you really need a hug. You need somebody to hug you, and that's always soothing and comforting. And when you were a small child, there was a mother who would hug you when you were experiencing difficult emotions. In this way, maybe you can't hug yourself, but even if you like hugging yourself when you're experiencing difficult emotions, that's also fine. But a soothing touch is a way for you to calm yourself down, to calm your nervous system down. So pause, curiosity to determine where is it in your body, what emotion is it, and then staying with the emotion. You can also, if you don't have time to maybe specifically go through these steps, sometimes even we have this expression and saying name it to tame it. Just try naming the emotions that is more present, that is the most present, or just try identifying where it is in your body, the emotion that you feel. So this is something that can help you stay with those emotions. Now I would like to share what usually won't work and what people tend to do, including myself. And this really is something that I've noticed from my personal work and also from my personal experience. Give it into your emotions. So it's not always the best advice. So sometimes we think that the best solution would be to just like, okay, feel whatever there is, give it in, allow yourself, but in this form of not having, this might more lead to emotion overwhelming you rather than the real self-regulation. Of course, when I'm saying this with a really big caution, because if you're going through a tough period or a mental health issue, or you lost someone you love, you're grieving for someone, it is normal and okay for you to need more time to process difficult emotions. So please allow yourself to experience them. So this don't do advice is not related to people who are struggling with mental health. It's not related to people who went through certain traumas, through certain losses, through certain tough periods, but because in those periods we need more time to process certain emotions. And in those specific cases, you might need the support of psychotherapist for you to help you overcome those difficult emotions, to learn the best ways how to stay with them, how to process them. So if that's the case, please take your time to really feel and be with your difficult emotions and give yourself time and space to process them. So I'm really saying this as a big advice to seek for a counselor or for a psychotherapist if you're currently going through really difficult and emotionally triggering and challenging time, then for sure, and it's totally normal that you need more time. But if you're not going through a certain tough time, if you're not experiencing any loss, mental health issues, and so on, sometimes, I also say this with caution, sometimes, not always, sometimes we tend to cling for too long on our difficult emotions, which can impact negatively our relationships, family life, etc. So when we dwell too much into certain negative emotions, we might dwell then into self-pity, bitterness, and lose, in a way, track when is the right time to move on. So sometimes we tend to cling on certain experiences, and maybe there's a deeper reason why we're clinging to certain negative experience and why we're dwelling into this self-pity, into this bitterness, and this whole mood and state in which we are. And sometimes we might need to dig deeper to find out what is behind us, dwelling so long on certain life experience, or maybe something that happened, or having this tendency to get so around by our emotions and so on. So for this, you might really need to dive deeper in finding those reasons. Maybe something that happened to you triggered certain event from the past that still hasn't been unresolved. Maybe there are certain negative core beliefs that you have about yourself, about other people, about certain relationships in your life. Maybe there is a deeper issue. Why are you dwelling on certain, difficult emotions? Because it's easier for you rather than, taking responsibility for your life. Maybe you're just in your comfort zone and you don't want to, do a certain type of personal development work or psychotherapy or counseling to step away, and maybe because you're afraid of new challenges, new decisions that need to be made, and so on. So there are many different reasons when we tend to dwell too long in certain emotional states that are not good for us. But this is also something that you need to discover through certain form of psychotherapy, counseling, or certain longer, personal development training from different approaches. And for those kind of challenges, I would definitely recommend going through 8 weeks mindfulness program or 8 weeks mindful self-compassion program, or of course, if you feel like you need more support, then for sure psychotherapy or counseling. So things that you can ask yourself is question your way of thinking and observing life situations and challenges. Do you have a tendency to think in black and white terms? Do you have a tendency to see everyone and everything as your enemies, as challenges in your life, and as obstacles? Do you have a little bit this victim mentality, oh, poor me, nothing works for me, and so on? Are you being bitter with other people, with life in general, and relationships? Those are all things to ask yourself, when it comes to experiencing difficult emotions, and maybe there's a deeper reason why you feel the way you feel and act the way you act. So the second thing is asking close people around you for feedback. So maybe you should ask family members, close friends, close colleagues at work. Do they think that maybe you're being overly negative or dramatical, or that you're pitting yourself, or that you're stuck in certain state, or that you're overreacting, or that you're overly emotional, and so on? So maybe there is a deeper reason. Maybe you're going through burnout. Maybe you're going through compassion fatigue. Maybe you're going through emotional exhaustion. These are all the topics I've written, and you can find on our website, buyoeducation.com. Like, I've written a lot about compassion fatigue, emotional exhaustion, chronic stress. So maybe you're going through these challenges right now, and maybe just doing a couple of mindfulness exercises won't help. Maybe you need a bit long-term work on yourself to, go through these challenging emotions and thoughts that you're experiencing right now. And observe how you're spending your time and with whom. So are you spending your time, just dwelling in certain negative states of mind, reactions? Are you spending your time only with people who are in a little bit the same mindset? Do you avoid people who are in different mindset that are maybe a bit more positive or that challenge your, let's say, state, which is not so healthy, and so on? So, questioning the way you think and observe life situations and challenges, asking close people for feedback, and observe how you're spending your time with and with whom. These questions can give you a bit more clarity about maybe why you are so long in certain, let's say, difficult emotional mental states. And of course, asking yourself, are you maybe going through burnout, emotional exhaustion, chronic stress? And maybe this is the reason why you feel the way you feel. Other thing that I notice that people have a tendency to do is people have a tendency to, especially, but this is not for everyone. Like when I say this, and this I mostly mean the people who are for a long time in personal development, who are working on themselves, who maybe even go to psychotherapy or some other personal development training or coaching or something else. So people then have this tendency, and I really talk about this from really personal perspective, because this is something that happened to me that I noticed after some time of dwelling really deep in the personal development and personal growth. People have a tendency to constantly look too obsessively for the profound messages that emotions carry. And that often leads these groups of people, including myself, to easily fall in this trap of over analyzing everything they're feeling. In a way, like, oh my God, for example, during the day, somebody says something to me, and then I start to think, like, oh, this is the wound from my relationship with my mother, or this is the wound from my relationship with my father, or this is because I'm a people pleaser, or this is because I don't know how to set boundaries. Oh, this is because when I was 10, this happened in my primary school. Oh, this is because I was bullied. This is because. So we tend to go like in this over analyzing of our emotions, which means actually that you're again not allowing yourself to feel these emotions. So again, you're going into your thinking mind and you think like, oh, I know where this is coming from. This is coming from, my wound with my, I don't know, mother. This is because this happened when I was 5. Okay, so I don't have to feel this anymore. Now everything is clear. No, you're again in your mind. You're again not experiencing the emotion to its fullest, meaning you're not allowing yourself just to be sad or angry or ashamed or guilty or whatever it is that you're feeling. You don't allow yourself to notice where is that emotion in your body. How does it feel to have this emotion? How intense it is. Asking yourself, for example, on the scale from 0 to 10, how intense is this emotion for me? Can I maybe soothe myself by crying, or I don't know, by putting a hand on that place to calm myself down? Do I need some other form of support? Do I maybe need to go for a walk right now? Do I need to, I don't know, call a friend and cry? Or do I just need to, lay in my bed to calm down, to relax, to stay with whatever I'm feeling right now? Instead of again going to that whole mind story. Where is this coming from? Why is it here? Is it from 20 years or 10 years or whatever? So what does that exactly mean? Applying curious rather than analytical mind to your own emotions. So don't overanalyze the emotion why it's there, because that again means you're not giving it space to be there. Just be curious about it. How does it feel? How intense it is for me? What can I do now to soothe myself? Are there maybe some encouraging words that I can say to myself to comfort myself? It's okay that I feel this way. It's fine. It will pass. I'm okay right now. I can stay with this sadness. Going through those steps that I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar. Name the emotion, stay with it. Where is it in the body? giving it space to be there instead of going into the story of your mind, because again that means again you're not experiencing the emotion. So I will now leave some space for your questions. We have, I think, around 10 minutes left, and I will also invite you to check out our free resources. There are a lot of free resources, a lot of exercises, audio exercises, past webinars, podcasts, tons of articles, so a lot of things, both in Serbian and in English language. So I really invite you to follow us. I invite you also to add me on LinkedIn, to follow our page, and also I invite you to sign up on our newsletter, sign up for the future webinars, and we'll soon share the information about the last week of June when we will have this resilience week, and when we will do different practices that can help us build our resilience and also develop our leadership skills. And now I will leave some space for your questions. Here I can see mostly questions from people who are here. Okay, so I got one question. It is complicated with mixed emotions when something is out of my control, maybe. Yeah, for sure that it's more complicated, and for sure when things are out of our control. And in a way, like, we are not, when we talk about like difficult emotions, it's not about so much about controlling them, but it's more about allowing them to be there, accepting that they're there, giving them space, rather than, I'm in control now. Like, I can control this emotion, so like that I don't get overwhelmed. Because there will be situations when you will for sure get overwhelmed, when emotions are too intense, especially if you're experiencing something really, really difficult and really challenging. And also in some situations, maybe you won't manage to name which is the strong emotions. Maybe there's going to be more stronger, like maybe you're both afraid and angry, at the same time. Just allow it to be there. Be curious about it. And ask yourself, what could help me maybe now? Like, what do I need right now to soothe myself? And in self-compassion practice, we have something called yin and yang of self-compassion. So in the program Mindful Self-Compassion, we're learning yin and yang of self-compassion. Yin means that sometimes when we're experiencing difficult emotions, we might more need the comforting, soothing, and validating. So in some situations when you experience difficult emotions, sometimes you might need more to soothe yourself. For example, to say some encouraging, supportive words to yourself, to find the calming touch, to validate, to just confirm this is what I'm feeling right now. Maybe to other person, like calling a friend, like, hey, listen, right now I'm so sad. Like, this happened. I'm so sad, but I'm also angry at the same time. I'm experiencing all this. So maybe sometimes you need to validate to yourself, but also share with others so that you get a good friend who can also validate that it's okay what you're feeling. So that's more the yin self-compassion. And sometimes you need more the yang self-compassion. And that means that maybe in some situations you might need more protection, motivation, protecting, motivating, and providing. So what does that mean? In some situations, you might need to protect yourself, maybe if you're experiencing, for example, anger. Actually, what you need maybe when you're getting angry is to learn how to set up a boundary to protect yourself from someone else because somebody is crossing your boundary. So what you need is actually more something that is more action oriented, like providing safety for yourself. That's the whole providing part. Protecting yourself from other people, learning to say no. Or is it motivating yourself? Motivating yourself to make certain changes in your life so that this emotion doesn't happen again, or this situation doesn't happen again, because emotion will happen for sure again, but maybe certain situations that don't happen again. For example, somebody offended you, and then you need to motivate yourself to, I don't know, have a certain difficult conversation in order for person not to offend you in that way future wise. So asking yourself all those questions can help you support yourself better when you're dealing with difficult emotions. Okay, how to give space to emotion. Hopefully, I answered your question. How to give space to emotions, intense ones, as you say, during a conversation. So during a conversation, it of course depends on the relationship that you have with the person and how comfortable you are with the person and so on. So one thing that helps me a lot, like of course with close people, when I'm experiencing certain difficult emotions, I need a lot of space. For example, when I'm angry, I can't function and stay in communication with people when I'm angry. And I tend to say to people, just give me 20 minutes. And I know exactly that I need exactly 20 minutes because I observed myself. I need 20 minutes to be on my own. And then we can continue with this. I I need that space for myself. Of course, that's with close people. With other persons, that maybe you're not so close with, I do tend to pause, and I do tend to help myself with a soothing touch. But I also want you to know that this works for me, for me individually, and it came from me observing myself. You need to figure out what works for you, and you need to observe yourself. So that's the whole part of self awareness, to see what is working for you. Maybe for you, it works to, I don't know, take a few deep breaths when you're in conversation and you start to notice that you're experiencing intense emotion. Maybe you need to breathe deeply. Maybe you need to start walking around. Maybe you need to say to a person, please give me my 5 minutes. Or maybe you feel like you want to say to a person, listen, I'm angry right now. Maybe you need to really say it, name it to tame it. Or I'm sad. I'm so sad right now. Or I'm so angry at you. Or I'm so frustrated, whatever. So that really depends on you and in which stage of let's say self-awareness, and which are your self-regulation skill, and what you notice that works for you. So this is really like individual, and this is something that you need to figure out for yourself. But what I did notice that mindfulness practice helped me a lot is learning how to pause, and learning how to self regulate myself, and learning faster to recognize when I'm going in certain emotions by observing my body sensations. So for me, often that I do notice upfront before fully going into an emotion, I notice my body sensation. And for me, that's already alarm that I'm going to get into a certain emotion. So for example, I often notice that when I'm angry, I start like my hands get this energy, and then I know, oh, this is going to lead now to full blown anger. And then I take certain steps to calm myself down, and not go into, if I'm of course in certain conversations where I can't fully express maybe that anger, it's not appropriate or whatever. Business setting. Yes, same explanation. Like I work a lot with people. Like I do trainings, I do workshops, and of course I do get triggered and annoyed, because I'm also human, with certain comments or questions and so on. And for me, I tend to slow down. That's the first thing. For example, if somebody ask me something that I feel uncomfortable with, or make a certain comment that is maybe triggering for me and so on. So for me, it's more feeling of shame that I face in my work, or shame or insecurity, or often also frustration, anger. There are participants who are also crossing my boundaries. I tend to pause. Like I don't tend to rush with my answer. I tend to pause. I tend to do certain grounding exercise to ground myself. Like I often rub my hands on my knees. That helps me a lot to calm myself down. Or I do something like this, like hold my hands tightly, to calm myself down, like something like this as well. and then I slow down the way how I talk usually, and then I try to respond. So that's what I do when and I work with children, adolescents. You know, I went to schools, and yeah, young people tend to tend to provoke you with interesting questions, and yeah, you do tend to get triggered. So you really need to learn how to stay calm. Okay, how can that be applied in business situations? I think I explained now a little bit when it comes to business. Slowing down, taking a few deep breaths, not rushing to give a response, pausing, stepping back, doing some grounding exercises, which mostly include certain touch, focusing on your breath, hand on the stomach, focusing on certain sensations, and then giving the answer and naming that feeling for myself. What I'm feeling right now. But what I do tend to practice, but this is not something that I teach because I'm not a teacher for radical honesty. There's one approach that I call radical honesty. So I do tend to say, especially I started doing that in the last year or so. I do tend to say how I feel to my participants. Even when it's certain, I get provoked by certain questions or so on. I tend to say, right now your question did arouse certain shame within me, or I do feel slightly embarrassed, or I do feel uncomfortable with this question. I feel slightly anxious about what you just asked me. So I do tend to express my feelings openly, how I feel. And people respond okay to it. I also work with, in corporate settings, I do trainings in companies and organizations, and I've never been judged by doing that. I actually did get a lot of like praisal for that, in a way that people say, "Oh, you're so honest." It's refreshing to see somebody, honest. And I do slightly feel triggered also right now with these questions as well. I do slightly feel uncomfortable. Yeah. Yes, that's a great way to avoid talking from some temporarily emotion. Thank you. Yeah, so calming yourself down, but of course, if you do feel okay, even sometimes saying what you feel, it's also okay, you know. But I would first maybe suggest grounding yourself and sometimes name it to tame it. Because you will see also sometimes in certain communication with certain people, when you express how you feel like you're in more control. And then you don't, that's that whole thing of name it to tame it. Then you feel a bit more secure. For if you of course are confident with staying with that emotion, of course it depends on the setting of the relationship and so on. So for me, so far, I've only got good responses regarding this. But of course, it all depends on your workplace relationships you have and so on. So it cannot, of course, be applied in everything. Okay. Okay. Are there any more questions? I think I will maybe have maybe question time for one more question. Oh, I see now. I think I did self regulation wrong because this way my emotions were suppressed and not recognized. Yes, yes. I often, like, to be honest, also when I went in the whole person development journey and working on myself, one thing that I noticed, I thought that I'm regulating my emotions by cognitively exactly knowing why they're there, why I'm feeling them, where are they coming from. which this reminds me of, which situation. Like I would overanalyze them to death, literally. And then I thought, like, oh, I'm so good in self-regulating. But again, I wasn't with them. I was just analyzing them in my mind. I didn't give myself space to stay with those emotions, without going into overthinking. And then I thought, like, oh my God, like I'm so self-aware, I'm so great at this, but actually I wasn't. So really what helped me is to not go in that thinking patterns. If you want, of course, you can maybe journal later, like, oh, this is what I felt. Maybe it's connected with this. You can do that for yourself. If you have the need to do that, I'm not saying that's wrong. Like you can do it later, maybe to explain certain behaviors of yourself and certain reactions. You can do it later. But at the moment, while you're experiencing that emotion, just stay with it. Don't go in your thinking mind. Just learn how to stay with it. Okay. Okay, well, thanks everyone for joining tonight. I hope this webinar again was helpful. I hope you got a bit different or new perspectives, or you just revised what you already knew. Hope to see you also next month. I invite you to follow us. We will share links towards a newsletter, towards some free resources as well. And if you want to organize a workshop, a training, or in Serbian language or in English language for your company, organization, your team, feel free to contact us. Have a nice evening.